You may have heard the saying, pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. Originally meaning to improve your situation by your own efforts, in tech it has come to mean a self-starting process that loads and goes. We need to tell Angular to load our root component through a process that is called bootstrapping. We first set up the index.html file to host our application. Then we define our root Angular module to bootstrap our root component. Let's look at both of these steps. Client-side web applications often work like this. A user accesses a specific URL. The server associated with that URL is located and sent a request. The server responds by returning its default web page, index.html. The browser receives and processes that index.html file. For an Angular application, the index.html file contains script tags referencing the application files that were transpiled and bundled into several JavaScript files. These application files are then downloaded to and processed by the browser, and the application's main page appears. The index.html file contains that main page for the application. This index.html file is often the one true web page of the application. Hence, an application is often called a single-page application, or SPA. But don't worry, it will look to the user like we have lots of pages, as we saw in the demo at the beginning of this course. What we do is insert bits of HTML into the one HTML page defined in index.html. Let's see how that works. Here again is our app component, just shifted to the right. Recall that the selector is the name of the component when we use it as a directive in HTML, and the template defines the HTML that we want to display. So in the index.html file, we simply add the selector where we want our template displayed. Here in the template, we call this a directive. A directive is basically a custom element. As soon as the loading is complete, the HTML defined in the component template is inserted between the selector element tags and appears on the page. But how does the Angular compiler know about this custom HTML element? It looks in an Angular module. Angular modules help us organize our application into cohesive blocks of functionality and provide boundaries within our application. They also provide a template resolution environment. What does that mean? When the Angular compiler sees a directive in a template, it looks to the Angular module for the definition. So we declare the app component in an Angular module so the compiler can find it. We also use the module to bootstrap our startup component, which is our app component. And we want our application to work correctly in the browser, so we add Angular's browser module to our Angular module's imports. Okay, pictures are nice, but what does that look like in code? Here is our application's root Angular module. As with most everything in Angular, we define an Angular module using a class. We identify the class as an Angular module by attaching the ng module decorator and passing in metadata defining the details of this Angular module. For the ng module decorator, the properties are arrays. In the declarations array, we define which of our components belong to this module. By convention, our root application component, app component, belongs to the application's root Angular module, app module, so we declare it here. We can add other components here as well. We'll cover best practices for organizing our application into Angular modules later in this course. For now, all of our components will be declared here. In the imports array, we define the external modules that we want to have available to all of the components that belong to this Angular module. External modules could be modules provided by Angular, a third party, or our own Angular modules. Here we import browser module, which every browser application must import. Browser module registers important application service providers, such as error handling. The bootstrap array defines the startup component of the application, which is our app component. The startup component should contain the selector we use in the index.html file, which in this case it does. Now let's check it out in the sample application.